A module defines an Angular application. Most Angular applications have one main module, but they can reference any number of other modules. For example, the main product management application is defined with the main module. That main module can reference a second module that contains a reusable set of common code. A module tracks all of the application code. This is accomplished through a registration process. As each piece of the application code is built, it can register itself with the module. We'll see how that is done as we add controllers and other code to the application. The module also tracks all of the dependencies on external modules or libraries. This is accomplished when the module is created, as we'll see shortly. Bottom line, as its name infers, the module keeps the application modularized. To create a module, we use the Angular Module method. The Angular Module method has two overloads. When defining a module, the module method requires two parameters. The first parameter is the module name. Since this is the main module, we set it to the application name. The second parameter is the array of dependencies. A dependency is a reference to any other module or library that this module uses. These dependencies are also known as injectables because Angular injects them into the parts of the application that need them. If there are no dependencies, an empty array must be provided. Our application does not currently have any dependencies, but it will. We'll see how to set up dependencies in the next module. This syntax is sometimes referred to as the setter method for the Angular module because it is the syntax used to set or define the module. Use the second overload with one parameter to look up and reference an existing module. The parameter in this case is the name of the module to look up and reference. This is useful when registering other code, such as controllers, as we'll see later. The syntax is called the getter method for the Angular module because it is used to get the reference to that module. Let's create our main module now. Here we are back in WebStorm. By convention, the main module is defined in a file called app.js. In our directory structure, that file is defined under the app directory, so we can right-click on App, select New JavaScript file, and we want to call it app.js. Let's declare the module and assign the result to a variable called app. We'll use the setter Angular module syntax. The first parameter of our module method is the name. We'll call it product management. The second parameter is the set of dependencies. We don't currently have any dependencies. Now that we have a module, we want to modify the ng-app tag to reference the module by name. So we'll go to index.html, and where we have our ng-app tag, we're going to set it equal to our module name. And there it is. This ensures that Angular launches this module as the main module. We also need to ensure that the new app.js file is downloaded, so we can add a script tag for it. If we run the application, it runs just as it did before. But let's look at this code again. What have we done here? We've added the app variable to the global namespace. We've always heard that global variables are bad, right? How do we fix this? Well, we fix it with something called an IIFE, I-I-F-E. An IIFE, or immediately invoked function expression, is a JavaScript pattern that helps prevent global declarations. You may sometimes see it called a self-executing anonymous function. In JavaScript, variables and functions defined with the var keyword are added to the global namespace, giving them global scope. Global variables make it too easy to accidentally reuse the same variable name. With JavaScript's carefree attitude, it won't notify you when this happens. So you might find weird bugs in your application. If you instead define variables and functions within another function, those variables and functions are local within that function. So the idea with the IFI pattern is to put all variable and function declarations within another function. That immediately invoked function expression. This is what it looks like. Let's give the IFI a try and talk through its syntax in detail. Here we are back in WebStorm with the app.js file open. Let's start by defining a function around the module. Now the app variable is local to this function and not added to the global namespace. But by putting the code within another function, the code in this function won't be executed. How do you execute a function? By putting parentheses after the function declaration. The function then becomes self-executing. But notice the syntax error here. The parser then treats the function as a function declaration instead of a function expression, and throws a syntax error because a function declaration requires a name. If you are not familiar with the difference between a function declaration and a function expression in JavaScript, I wrote a blog post about it. See the link to my blog at the beginning of every module. The accepted way to tell the parser to expect a function expression is to just wrap it in parentheses. In JavaScript, you can't put declarations within parentheses, so the existence of the parentheses implies that the contents must be an expression. So we're going to put one there and there. The syntax errors are now gone, and there it is, an immediately invoked function expression, or IFI. You'll see this pattern used throughout this course. Before we move on, let's add one more thing inside our IFI. Inserting use strict here puts the entire contents of the IFI in strict mode. In strict mode, JavaScript will catch some common coding mistakes and throw exceptions. For example, using an unassigned variable will cause an exception. Let's try this out. Let's remove the var from in front of app. Notice that app now turns red and it says unresolved variable or type app. If we comment out the use strict, the undeclared app variable is no longer in error. So by using strict, you can catch some of the more common errors. So let's put our var back, and there we go. Now we are ready to build the controller for our view.